Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil, Laird.
And I'm Producer Dave.
Back with a movie review for you guys this week. This is for a movie that came to both of us by interesting means, and I'm willing to bet a lot of you have seen the actual scene that brought us to this film.
Yes.
It's
been gift crazily.
And, regrammed, and any of the above ways of spreading on social media. This clip has done so. I've been wanting to watch it for a long time, but it only recently became available on Netflix.
Yes.
Once again, Netflix saves the day. So we are going to be talking about a movie called Tag, or at least that's the English, I guess I'm it. The English translation for the film, which I'm not even going to venture an attempt at because I cannot read Japanese. But yes, the English translation is Tag, and this is a wild movie. I guess that's...
Wild, yeah. That's a good way to describe it because it's not your typical horror film.
No, definitely not. And some people might say it's pushing it to consider it a straight horror film, and it's not a straight horror film. It has definitely got thriller elements, you know, through most of it and stuff like that. But it is what it is, and there's definitely this scene alone qualifies it as a horror film. So we are going to be doing this like we normally do, talk about our overall thoughts, then the story, the acting, the effects, all that good stuff in turn. So my overall thoughts were, if I had to boil it down, it's that I was disappointed because that scene, I was like, okay, I can't wait to see the movie around this scene. Like, I want to see what happens. I want to see if this is, I'm assuming this is maybe in the middle or something like that, but it turns out that it is essentially the opening scene of the film, and then nothing else lives up to that high bar, in my opinion.
True.
So that's my overall thoughts on it.
As far as why we went to the film. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you there. I remember this gif of the bus getting, peeled off.
Right.
And so when we started to sit down and watch it, I was like, oh shit, this is the film from the GIF.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
That's how it was.
That's
done.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
But your overall thoughts on the movie were
overall
what?
thoughts was, hey, this is the movie from the GIF.
That's really it? No,
really.
Beyond that? Okay.
I mean, it was good in the sense that there were it was a unique attempt. Mm-hmm. It was a unique attempt. Mm-hmm. But other than that,
I mean, the one thing that we can absolutely say for certain, I think both of us would probably agree on this, but please correct me if I'm wrong, is that neither one of us knew what the fuck was going to happen next at any point.
Very true.
Like that, the movie is extremely unpredictable in that
unpredictable,
sense.
Yes. Because usually you and I are like, oh, I see how this is going to end.
Right.
Right? But this one, no.
You cannot get a handle on this greasy running man of a person. It is of a film rather. It is so crazy, like how it just changes and like. So, well, let's launch into the story. Okay, so it starts off with this scene that we're talking about again, where there's this, and it's the opening scene, so we can't say it's a spoiler because it's how the film opens. It's what draws you into the movie. And it is what was clipped everywhere all over social media. So it's basically this group of Japanese schoolgirls on this bus headed to school, and all of a sudden,
or headed on a field trip,
headed on a field trip or something. We don't know exactly where they're going, but they're on this bus, and all the girls are rowdy and laughing and talking over the seats to each other and stuff like this. But there's one little mousy kind of girl that's like doing her reading. And she ends up dropping a pen, and when she bends down to go grab the pen, all of a sudden, the entire top half of the bus's cab is shorn straight off, including the top half of every single one of the schoolgirls, except for the one that's bent over to grab the pen.
Right.
And so it begins with this huge mass death scene, this ghost ship level mass death scene, that then turns into a chase scene,
right,
where this girl is obviously she stands up and freaks out, and this is where some of the effects we're gonna have to talk about come in later on. But yeah, she starts running, and this thing, whatever this invisible thing is, the wind, keeps following her and attempting to kill her, and all the new people she runs into like get shorn in half and stuff like that. It's really crazy. But then you're following her as the main character, and then she gets to her school where everything seems normal, and then things go crazy again. And it's like there's these little tiny moments of normality in between these extreme bouts of either horror or action or stuff like that, which now, as I'm talking about it in retrospect, knowing what the film is, that actually makes sense. But then it changes entirely, and we're following a new female actress playing the same character but in a completely new situation.
Which again, in retrospect, you go, okay, the film's called Tag.
Right. Yeah.
So that it makes a lot more sense when you understand that. Like, we're tagging. We're going to someone else now. It's going to be their story. But it all relates back to the beginning.
Right.
So it's one of those things that you don't expect, but also are kind of expecting. But they do it in a great way that you're not, predicting it.
And it happens more than once, too.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to watch from that perspective, because, again, just the lack of predictability is really something to laud for this film. Now, I will say the overall story was disappointing for me.
Lackluster.
It was lackluster. Yeah. Well, and I guess, again, the ending that they gave is kind of, well, I think more for acting than anything.
Yeah.
But I think in retrospect, the lack of story also makes sense in context, because when you think about what it ends up being, that doesn't always have the hugest amount of story. But anyway, the movie is just out there, and the story is just a little, like Dave said, lackluster. So let's talk about the acting, though. And this is where I think sometimes the cultural differences sort of affect my appreciation for certain films. The same with The Host. I love The Host. It's one of my favorite creature movies. It's a Korean creature movie, but there's a scene that deals with a funeral where the actors are so over the top it pulls me right out of the film. But I believe it's a cultural thing. And so this had a lot of like cultural acting sort of styles and like some really over the top stuff, but over the top to me, maybe not over the top in Japan, so that's the weird thing about it for me, with the acting. What did you think of the acting?
I thought the acting overall was great, but again,
the lead actresses were awesome.
It is tough because sometimes you want to suspend your disbelief and just go, okay, this girl is in this situation. She's jumping from character to character. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know where she is in this story. Or why. And so that part came off great. That part came off great.
Well, especially because it makes you feel the same way as a viewer. You don't know where she is. You don't know why. You're just along for the ride and trying to piece things together. And, trying to piece things together the way she does. So the movie is successful in that way if you like that kind of thing. I prefer to have a more identifiable story.
But that's the thing. When you watch foreign films, sometimes you have to give them a step up and be like, okay, look, I'm not going to understand every piece of this, so I have to give a little bit, and that's, I think, what we did for Tag, in the sense that we're like, okay, this is a Japanese horror film that is going to deal with multiple characters. Literally, we're playing tag,
right?
Which about halfway through the film, you're like, oh yeah, this is called Tag. It's about passing the story off to, you're it. Now it's you. Now it's a different character, but it's the same person. So that's what's interesting.
Yeah, it makes sense by the end, but it's sort of confusing for a long time. A little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
But they have good visuals, and they have Japanese schoolgirls, so
Yeah, there's always that.
It's kind of like the producers got in a room together and like, we want to take 50 Japanese schoolgirls and put them into a horror film. How do we do it?
Yeah, this is one way.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
And what I liked about it was you felt just as confused as the main character.
Right.
And I think sometimes when you do that in a film, it works or it doesn't work, and in Tag it worked.
Now, let's talk about the effects,
Yeah.
okay? Or do you want to do cinematography first?
Effects are fine.
Okay, yeah, because the movie relied heavily on it. I mean, the opening scene, especially with everyone being shorn in half, the effects were very CG at times,
Yeah.
but then they did do a lot of practical sort of aftermath effects.
Yeah.
Some were more successful than others, so unfortunately the effects left a little to be desired for me.
Yeah.
Although they were super ambitious, so I have to give them sort of points for that. So it kind of offsets,
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because there were definitely moments where they went above and beyond of what you'd expect from a horror kill. But then other moments where you're kind of like, oh, you guys could have, I mean, you set it up that you're going to do all these really cool kills and then blah.
Yeah.
So I think there is a balance throughout the film. However, in the end, I think they were a little less.
The second bit of the first part at the school got pretty aggressive with the effects too, with the shootings and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think they had some great ideas, and they stuck them into the film, and then they had to come up with other ideas. So it wasn't as great.
Not as cohesive as you might have hoped.
Yeah.
Now the cinematography was actually pretty serviceable.
Fine.
Yeah,
I
mean, nothing to super write home about, but there was nothing that frustrated me, which does sometimes happen.
Yeah.
Pitchfork. But this one was, it was a well-made film. It definitely had some budget behind it.
Sure.
But by the end, I was wishing, like with all the ideas they were trying to throw at me, I just wish they had been more successful at doing so. Like I feel like this would actually be a fantastic candidate for an American remake headed up by like the Naughty Dog team,
right,
or something like that. You know what I mean? One of the great game developers, or 3 different game developers, and you have the first one be like the Evil Within, the horror game, and then you do maybe a Call of Duty game, and then something a fantasy sort of open world game or something like that. Like there's interesting ways you can present this story. And especially if the character sort of comes out of it at the end and realizes it, like that seems like it seems like fertile ground for storytelling, but it just wasn't executed as well as I would have hoped by the time I realized what it was.
Well, and I also think what you're sensing is the cultural difference.
Yeah.
Is that the Japanese audience kind of understood that this was like, A to B, and we were kind of like, A to C, really? So I think there is a little bit of a cultural divide, but also I think what you're saying is absolutely true, that for the most part this film was great. A quality, good production value, good effects, good fucking acting, but in the end the story was what we were having a hard time understanding and or comprehending, and that's where the lost in translation comes into effect.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because I think overall it was a really interesting story. I don't think it was the type of story where you go, hey, I want to tell my friends about this story,
right,
necessarily, where it was versus the first 20 minutes of this film were fantastic, and then the back half of the film was like they were trying to meet that first 20 minutes. So it was almost like they had a great idea for the opening of the film, and then they just developed a film around that opening. And this and there.
It's also an interesting sort of experimental anthology, because this could be considered sort of anthological.
Sure, because it's different. Well, again, you have to watch the film to understand.
Different set pieces, sort of.
It's different characters. It's different things, but they're all the same.
Right.
So it's weird in that sense, but also very understandable in that sense.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, I think
the effects were cool, though.
Yeah, you liked
the acting was good. I mean, there wasn't a single effect that I was like, that was terrible.
Really? Oh, well, not terrible. No.
Yeah,
Some were like,
yeah, but I mean, after the first 20 minutes, I was like, okay, well, that's the type of film that we're going to be watching.
Right.
So I give them some leeway to, whatever. But for the most part, I didn't think that. It was a bad film. I thought it was an okay film, and so for that reason, I would say to other people, check it out, enjoy the first 20 minutes. If you can stick it through to the end, stick it through to the end. If not,
I would say, look, I was ultimately not like over the moon about this movie, but I will say it is the most unpredictable movie I've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah.
So for that reason,
alone,
it.
yeah,
I could
absolutely.
recommend it.
Well, and it was honestly because you're sitting there going, "What the fuck is going to happen next?"
Mm-hmm.
So that alone, if you like that kind of thing in a film, it's worth watching for sure.
Yeah.
Because you really don't know what's going to happen next.
No, you don't. So, well, there you go, guys. I think that's going to do it for our review of Tag. We're not going to, there's not much else to really, I mean, there is stuff to spoil, but why, If it interests you, go check it out. It's on Netflix right now. And I'd be interested to hear your opinion if you do. So if you have seen it, let us know in the comments down below. Or if you're interested to see it, let us know in the comments down below. I really want to know other people's opinions on this movie. Because, we watched it and no one else on the show has watched it, so we're just kind of sitting on it, so I'm glad we got to do this review. Let me know, like I said, what you thought of it down below. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
Producer Dave.
Make sure you click the link in the description box to go to our TeePublic store, where you can support the channel by getting some really cool horror merch. But remember, stay scared!